All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to One Soccer. I'm your host for today, Josh Deming. I'm joined by Alex Gonge-Ruzic, and today we have a few different things to touch on. Alex, we have the CPL final. We're going to potentially preview the CPL final. We have a big matchup to see who's going to be joining Cavalry, which I believe we're both heading to. Alex, right? You're heading down. I think we are, right? So that's gonna be fun.
We're shipping up to Calgary.
Yeah, I've never been. I honestly don't know if I've been outside. Actually, that's not true. I've been to Quebec. Getting a little sidetracked, but I don't think, besides being to Quebec, I don't think I've left Ontario. So I'm actually very excited.
Well, I've never been to beautiful British Columbia then.
I have not, and I have family out there, which is ridiculous. And my buddy Alex is out there, so that was higher up on my list. But it's the Cavs who locked up the final hosting rights, so we will be heading there. But there's a big matchup this weekend between Atletico Ottawa and Forge to see who will be joining them. So we'll be discussing that match and then touching a little bit on the final and depending on which team we think may make it there, we'll discuss the Whitecaps, and then we'll end off talking about the Canadian national team. There's a kind of a depth chart going around out there on X that we will touch on, and then we will build our projected 23-player-ish squad. So a lot to discuss today, Alex. So first things first, I know it's early over on the West Coast. How are you doing this morning?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I mean, it doesn't feel that early, but no. It's that time of year where it's like still dark outside, so it maybe feels like earlier than it is, and there's something waking up when it's still dark outside. It kind of throws you off, but hey, that's the time of year it is. It's fall, the leaves are starting to fall, the sun goes down earlier and comes up later in the morning, and of course there's playoffs, right? It's the time of year.
It is the time of year, and I've been I was in Europe, so I went 6 hours one way, and then I went over to the West Coast, so it's 3 hours the other. Now I'm going back. Well, I'm going to Calgary, and I believe that's two hours from me. So
that's another swing.
Yeah, like I say, I'm going all over the place. But Alex, let's rewind a little bit to the weekend. We're going to focus on CPL action to begin this stream. Out of the two matches, is there one that you want to focus on first? The history of the shootout, maybe, or do you want to talk about, I guess, the Cavs booking their spot and hosting the CPL final? Where do you want to begin?
Let's go for Ottawa. Let's do the Ottawa one since it was first on the day, and man, it was memorable. That's for sure. Might have been, there's some talk out there. Was this one of the top 5 CPL games ever? I think you could put it in that discussion. It's hard to think of many others that you could put up there. Man, if I were to think, maybe some of the games in the 22 playoffs were really good, really memorable. Maybe even you go back to 2021 playoffs, but it was definitely up there in terms of games, period, let alone playoff games as well.
Yeah, it was just an incredible game. I mean, we talked about the gauntlet that York would have had to go on. Well, I guess being really Pacific, but still, for York to do it, they would have had to win away. They would have to win away again, and then they have to go to the final and win. I think they should hold their heads high. I mean, this was an incredible performance. We all thought Atletico Ottawa was going to be one of the teams to probably not even have to be in this type of match right now. They were, I think, at the beginning of the year, Alex, they were probably the favorites-ish with Forge to finish first place and have a chance to at least host the final. And York took them all the way. And unfortunately for Mo Babuli, who was so great throughout these playoffs, it's his penalty at the end that was saved. Ingham fired right up. Is there anything within the game you thought this could have maybe swung one way or the other? Because, I mean, the penalty in extra time, well, I guess the late goal kind of made me think that York was going to maybe turn this around in extra time. But then 16 seconds in, there's a penalty to Atletico Ottawa. 3 minutes after that, Babuli takes it back. There's a big chance after that from Didic. I mean, it was a wild ride. Overall, do you think it was a fair result and Ottawa deserve it? Or do you think really it could have gone either way?
I think it could have gone either way, to be honest. But it's funny. I think based on how the game ended up playing out, definitely Ottawa felt like they were the team. Like they're the ones that were taking more control in the sense that it was a very even game, and then Ottawa gets the lead, and then they're in full control. Then they give up the lead, but then they take it right back. It almost felt like York was just kind of like an unwanted house guest. Felt like every time Ottawa had gotten some sort of control, York was right there. Like, no, don't forget about us. Like, he's still here, still making noise. So that's why it was funny, because it felt like a game like that. The fact that York got it to penalties, York in that case were the big winners, because Ottawa at home, Ottawa had the lead twice. It was kind of like a feeling of now would they be able to hold on in the shootout. But yeah, like you mentioned, that penalty miss ended up looming very large there, because Ottawa, they were clinical, they were perfect, some incredible penalties. Alberto Zapater, top corner, Amir Didic tried to break the net, like fair play to taking that kind of penalty in a high pressure situation. And Ilias Iliadis, we know he's good at corners, he's also pretty good at penalties, just slots it away. So yeah, I think it was funny because overall it ended up playing out as an even game, but it definitely, with how Ottawa was doing a good job of getting on the front foot in terms of the goals, it's funny that York kept finding a way to just stay alive in the crucial moments.
Yeah, it was weird, but it's one of those games, if you want to sell this league and what playoff football can be like, this is the type of match that I would hope someone was able to see, because it was just entertaining throughout. And the thing about sports that I always like is when you think one thing's going to happen and something else entirely does. And I thought they were going to see out the game and then to go to extra time and then immediately score. I'm like, all right, well, they had the scare. They quickly got it back. It's 2-1, and then all of a sudden it's 2-2. And then all of a sudden it's in a shootout where anything can happen. And it's just cruel the way it is, how good Babuli's been over playoffs, for him to be the one who misses the penalty, which is unfortunate. But yeah, Alex, we've seen some questionable penalties over penalty shooters, I guess, really within the Canadian Championship. So it was nice to see 9 for 10, really calm, cool penalties. I mean, as someone who used to play as a striker, I like seeing a confident penalty. My favorite throughout was probably Brian Wright's. Just that little drag, sends Ingham the wrong way, tucks in the corner. It was nice, but overall, it was quite the game, and it's going to be Atletico Ottawa moving on.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely quite the game. And you just think back to so much that happened. Like even in the game, Ottawa had a few chances to ice the game late, and they didn't. You just think back to all that drama, but definitely a big shout. Feels like it has to go to York's Shola Jimo there. 16-year-old scores the equalizer in regular time, cool as a cucumber. And then scores it in added time, and then in extra time he puts on this dime of an assist there to Babuli. Talk about stepping up in a pressure moment where most guys and seasoned pros maybe might feel a little nerves, might feel a little antsy, and he's just like, nope, big game. It's like he's been doing this whole life, like he's a 20-year vet, just like stepped up in such a big moment. And credit to him for doing that. And I think if York's wants reasons for excitement heading into next year, having an exciting young talent like that is pretty big among them, especially showing that mentality that they seem to have as a team as well, to not give up ever at any point in these games.
No, I mean, a young player scoring and assisting like that, it's just going to build confidence. And I like when a player, because sometimes when you're young and you go into a situation like this, you just don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to overthink it. You just want to go do your job and do it right. But I think when players can really shine, especially young players, is when they have that ability and confidence to play with a little freedom and try a few things. And that's definitely what we saw on display there. So Alex, next, I think, well, actually, I want to talk about the Olympico quickly, then we'll move on. So another Olympico. Is there anything you want to say about that? I don't know how many Olympicos this is. I saw it actually on X. Someone mentioned how many there were in the Canadian Premier League's history. I don't remember the number now.
I think it's 9 now or 10.
Is it 9 or 10?
I think it's almost at double digits, and there's been like 4 this year alone, 5, which is funny. Usually you'd think over time they'd go away, but I just say put a guy at the near post. I mean, this one was definitely, like, we've seen some pretty spectacular Olympicos. Like, I think of Tristan Borges last year in the final, and that was an incredible Olympico where I was like, Cavalry had set up for a corner, Borges looks up, sees it, like perfect. Or it was like legitimately Carducci made a play on it and it went in. This one definitely felt more of the goalkeeping error category of Olympico, because there's kind of two, one where it's like legitimate skill, everything hits, it goes back post, and then there's one where maybe you catch the keeper out. And definitely I was surprised York didn't have a player at the near post, and that Thomas Vincentini, especially Bassett and Ottawa, they love to in-swing their corners. It felt like you shouldn't be too caught off guard by that. Like, Bassett scored an Olympico before. That's the funny part about it. So definitely, I think one where York, when watching that back this week, was like, oof, what could have been.
Do you think it was intentional?
With Ollie Bassett, 100%.
I guess because I saw the debate on X again, and it's just funny the way that different fans can perceive it. Just, I don't know, something about the way he made contact with it made me think like it was intentional. I mean, obviously you can whip in a corner to the the front post and hope to get a flick on. But this one just looked like he saw something, he went for it, he scored. It looked pretty clean, and I don't know. It's always the debate, and if you ask the player, they'll always say like, "Yeah, I meant to do it. Of course I did. Why would you not think that? You not see it going back of the net?" But I do truly believe that this one was intentional, and it was a heck of a way to start off this game.
Yeah, I mean, what a way to score a goal right after halftime, too. That's probably, again, for York, like right after halftime. Bassett's done it before. Like, you know, little just litany of mistakes there that they'll want back. But hey, they got the response. And then, yeah, for York, really, they'll when they look back at this, it's the moments. Then right into the second half for Bassett, then right into the extra time, they gave up a penalty. It was those early moments, because otherwise York did a good job in the rest of the game. But those early moments ended up giving Ottawa a big advantage.
Yep, and it'll punish you. We'll get into a couple comments here. If you guys are with us in the stream, drop a like, say hello. I asked the question, Atletico Ottawa versus Forge this weekend. Who do you think will head to the final? Said for Josh's sake, I'll say Forge. I'm very neutral, my man. I kind of hope it's Atletico Ottawa. I do kind of hope it's that, because it would just be a completely different final, one that we haven't seen before. Cavs, Atletico Ottawa, I think it'd be a good matchup as well. Forge make it difficult, and we'll get into that conversation in a sec. And yes, there's a little bit of an error here. We made Armin get this up pretty early, so he had a little typo, and I don't know how to change it. But yes, it's not Saturday, November 3rd, the game. It's Saturday, November 2nd. So Joseph, way to catch that, not to confuse anybody. But yeah, so we will finish up touching on the CPL. Then we're going to move on to some Whitecaps action and finish off the stream talking about the Canadian national team and their potential squad that we could see. EM says, who on Forge needed time off to heal but isn't getting it?
Yeah.
Isn't getting it?
I'd say that one, I think it's a good question, because you know, Forge heading into the playoffs, they had a bunch of guys banged up, right? Like Tristan Borges missed some games at the end. So a few guys were sick. Like I know Betty Banga was battling a flu. That's not physical so much, but it's never easy at the end of the season when your body's already tired and you're fighting sickness. You know, Taryn Campbell's been fighting injuries all year. So there's definitely a few guys. I think Borges is the big one, because still, despite everything, Forge put out a pretty close to A-team lineup for this Cavalry game. Like, other than striker, ever since Kwasi Poku left, they haven't really had they've struggled to figure out what to do, up front, because they do miss Poku. Pierre puts it perfectly. But it's Borges, because I was just surprised that, you're down 1-0. It's a must-win game, and the substitution board comes up minute 64, and Borges is the one to go. Usually you think maybe you sacrifice a defender or someone like that, but I think that's a sign that maybe Borges isn't 100%, and he definitely could have benefited from the extra week. So I'm very curious to see how much they can get out of Borges, because yes, they're not the same team without Poku, but it feels like not having a Poku and having an inefficient or maybe not 100% Borges is just as big of a blow to their attack.
Yeah, Tristan Borges has been with his team for a while now. I mean, the brief spell in Belgium, but he's definitely a player that can make this team click. So we will have to wait and see. But Alex, going into this game, if I told you that York defeated Atletico Ottawa, I think you would say it would be a bit of a surprise. And if I told you that Cavalry defeated Forge, I think it's fair to say you might have also thought that was a bit of a surprise. So away from home, they pick up a big 1-0 win. They get the rights to host. What did you make of this game? And we mentioned that there was history in the first game because of the shootout, but there was also history in this game. I believe it's the first ever keeper assist. Alex, am I correct with saying that? I heard Jenkins on the call. I can't remember if some type of history was made there with Carducci's assist. Was it just the first one in general or in the playoffs?
I don't know if it actually got confirmed, but it definitely feels like it's one of the keeper assists. Like, it's been rare in terms of like a keeper just hoofing it and getting one. But either way, it was incredible awareness from Carducci. Perhaps too with the wind at Tim Hortons Field, he must have used that to his advantage. Sometimes when it's in your favor, you can let it ride a little longer on a goal kick or on a long ball. But it was like quite incredible. I mean, in terms of other history, I think that was Forge's like first time getting shut out in a playoff game since the CPL final in 2021. I think that's, if you look back, that might be only one of the like second times in history Forge has been shut out in a playoff game. They don't get shut out very often, these sorts of high leverage, high stakes sort of matches. So Cavalry, it was a very, very big win for Calgary, who I think it was that was the first time they beat Forge in a playoff, because if you look back, 2019 they lost both of those legs, and then in 2020, I mean, that wasn't really a true playoff structure, but Cavalry even lost that game to Forge, or drew it if I'm not mistaken. They didn't face each other in 21 and 22 across two legs. One was a draw, one was a Forge win. Last year, Forge beat them twice. So this was a little bit of history there for Cavalry too, finally getting a win over Forge in a playoff game, when in regular season, their record's been pretty even between them.
It's just wild because like I love the point that you made, because it's where I was going to go next. Yeah, the regular season record pretty even. Playoffs, this is big accomplishment. It is, but they're not dead and buried. Forge is still kicking. They can still defeat Atletico Ottawa, and then they can go to your home where you're gonna have to take them on once again. So I'm curious to see how healthy this Forge side can be, but I mean, it's got to feel good for Cavalry, but at the end of the day, they're not done yet, and Forge can be dangerous in the playoffs. So let's take a look at the Cavs. They picked up a fantastic performance, a big victory. Two players stood out to me, and I think when you think of playoffs and you want your big players to show up and show out, you have Marco Carducci, who we just mentioned. He had 5 saves in this match, 44 touches. His distribution was good. And of course, I believe he got the man of the match. And then you had Tobias Warshevsky, who was the Golden Boot winner this year. He scores the goal. What a touch as well. I mean, he showed strength to hold off the defender, had a nice little touch, and then just kind of put it in the empty net. So 2 big players showed up for Cavalry. Is there any other players you want to give a big shout out to in this match?
No, I definitely would go those two. I mean, Dan Klomp was Dan Klomp. Feels like he's always putting in big performances, and what a player he is. And what's key for Cavalry is that it feels like they've got something working, right? Like it just feels like everything complement each other. Like you got Klomp at the back, who's important defensively, important in possession. You've got Fraser Aird, who was one of the defenders of the year in the CPL, just how good he was at right back. I think he was in my team of the season. You got into midfield, guys like Shamit Shom, such an underrated season alongside of Diego Gutierrez. You move up to Sergio Camargo. Camargo's, just still making things happen, still dangerous. Just such a nice player to have between lines. And you have Ali Musi too. And I think what's nice for Cavalry is you can look and it all complements each other. In this game, maybe a Musi's sacrifice, but because Musi was occupying space, keeping a Malik Olabi Belabu busy, that opens up space for a Warshewski to go and score the goal. And they all kind of just complement each other nicely. And I think that's key in a final, especially if you're Warshewski. Like you're going to be getting service from all angles with Musi, Aird, all these options. And it just feels like Cavalry's just got nice pieces across the board, and you'd put them up against anyone in terms of their lineup.
What have you made of Jay Herdman so far? I thought that was a very interesting call because he was doing so well with the Whitecaps too. I mean, I know you're familiar with him being over in the West Coast. Did you I don't know if I've ever even really asked you about it, but did you like the move at the time, and how do you think he's playing with his new side?
Yeah, I like the move. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with his future, because you also do wonder, usually when the Whitecaps have loaned guys out, that's kind of been it for them. Like I think there's been a few where like Owen Antoniuk went to Cavalry a few years ago, or Ottawa was. I forget which of the two. There's some brothers. I think one might have ended up in Cavalry, one might have ended up in Ottawa. Either way, the Whitecaps loaned one out. Didn't really see him again. Loaned out Vasco Fry last year. That was kind of it. So I do wonder what their plan is for Herdman. But yeah, I was a bit surprised because he's highly rated within the Whitecaps system. They really like the profile. But he's had a lot of injuries, and sometimes he hasn't always fit in the system. I do wonder long term too, if they're like, well, your position is Ryan Gauld, you might just struggle to break into that. But I thought this was a good move. Cavalry is always a good spot to end up. He really does fit Cavalry with his work rate, his energy, his just kind of, he can be a bit of a pit bull of a player, which is unique. He's also creative. You don't always see those two mixes together. So I like this move, and if he doesn't end up back at the Whitecaps and they don't give him another look, hopefully Cavalry enjoyed what they saw and take him in, because I feel like he could be a prototypical, like, he reminds me a lot of a Sergio Camargo, and you can kind of see it the way they complement each other.
Because he was the skipper for, I think he was just straight up the captain for the Whitecaps too, or at least he wore the armband a fair amount of times when I've seen him play, and he's 20 years old. So that's why I thought he was having a pretty good season. That's why I was a little surprised that they were willing to do it. But I was meaning to ask you about it. But yeah, I mean, I think he fits his system well, and if I'm a Cavs fan, I hope he stays. He's fun to watch. He's got the Herdman connection. It's nice within the Canadian soccer community. But yeah, I've been impressed with him, and I kind of hope to see him stay in CPL.
Yeah, it'd be good for him, and yeah, like you mentioned, still young, which is obviously playing in his favor, because if it doesn't work out at the Whitecaps, yeah, some CPL teams would love to give a shot to him, especially seeing that in his limited time with Cavalry that he's been making things happen.
All right, Alex, last point now on the CPL. We're going to talk about the game coming up tomorrow. It is Forge. It's Atletico Ottawa. Who do you like right away?
Who do I like right away?
Yeah,
Ooh.
like it's difficult. I mean, Forge have history in the playoffs. They are the home side. They are banged up. I feel like that's the only thing, and they're coming off of a loss. So I'm very curious to see how they're going to be able to respond to that. I feel like it was a bit of a surprise to them that they weren't able to host another final. I don't know. I feel like it's really up in the air, and I'll go bold and say, like, I like Atletico Ottawa on this one.
Yeah, I mean, Ottawa's got a good road record. Ottawa's got a good team. I'm just gonna go Forge, because I know we said this last week with Forge. Oh, no way they can win 3 in a row. Well, now that it's playoffs and it's a must-win playoff game, ain't no way they lose that, because really they've not made a habit of losing these must-win playoff elimination games. But also, like, 4 in a row, four games without scoring. I just don't think that's gonna happen. I think this week they'll have locked in and been like, all right, like, the last 3 games are the last 3 games. You're here. There's a chance to make a 6th straight final. Go get another one up on Cavalry. It'll be just as sweet for them to win the final in Cavalry. I'm sure they'll be thinking, like, yeah, go get one right there. I think we're going to see a good version of Forge. So I definitely think it's going to be a competitive game, but I'll go Forge. All
right, final question then. Out of the 3 teams that are remaining, who do you have to win it right now?
I'll stick. I think Cavalry.
Okay.
I'll stick with Cavalry. I mean, it's boring because they're hosting and they won that game, but it just feels like they've got a lot of factors in their favor. Their roster is just deep across the board, right? Like, they have all the pieces, like a good goalkeeper, a good backline, the best backline in the regular season in terms of actual goals against, and then also expected goals against. They have the Golden Boot winner, so they have goals there. They have Ali Musi, who can create something out of nothing, has scored in a final before now. They have all the heartbreak, which sometimes you need as a playoff team, where you need a little bit of pain from the past to maybe break through in the present. I think they've ticked all those boxes. And I remember, I think I said it in around July or August, Cavalry was slumping, and there's some talks of where will they finish. And I was like, look, no matter where Cavalry finishes, I feel like they're built for the playoffs, and I'm not going to go away from that now.
I like the number one thing I like that you said, Alex, is they have experience with heartbreak. And I just think last year's final, we were there. Like, I was pitch side.
They were leading in extra time.
They were leading. They looked devastated. It was tough. I captured right behind the goal, Ali Musi's goal. I'm like, this thing's over. I didn't even think twice about it. And for it to just switch like that, and they ended up losing. And I was walking by the players and Tommy as well. And it was just the most depressing looks on their face. But I can just tell that they're going to like, and I overheard a conversation where Tommy's just like, like, we'll be back kind of thing. Like, not, I don't want to, I'm paraphrasing a bit of kind of what I overheard, and it was very loud, but the team came together and said, listen, like, we learned from it. It hurts now, but we're going to grow from it. And that's just what sports are about. And you see teams fall all the time, learn from their mistakes, learn from just the sadness, and come around and make a big difference. I agree with what you're saying, Alex. I'll make it a little different, just a different final. I think that shakes it up. I'll go Atletico Ottawa, like I said, over Forge, and then in the final, I still will go Cavalry. I think this is their year. All the points that you said, this looks like a team that has unfinished business to do in the playoffs. All right, Alex, we're going to move along now to the Vancouver Whitecaps. They play on November 3rd They lost their first game to LAFC 2-1, and a lot of there's some confusion on X. I think some people forget that it's not aggregate, and it's just they could. There's another game. Who lost 5-0, Alex, the other day?
Colorado.
Colorado.
Fresh start. Game
fresh
2.
Start. So it doesn't really matter. It would have been nice for aggregate for them to go down to LA and lose 2-1 with that away goal, but it doesn't matter. So they're going back home. What did you make of the first game, Alex? And do you like their chances of flipping this around? Because in this, I'm not a big fan of the 2 out of 3.
It's pretty rough to be honest.
It is pretty rough, and it's incredibly difficult. LAFC has been a fantastic team basically during their entire MLS existence, and they've been a thorn to the Whitecaps. And the fact that they're down 1-0, for them to be able to move on, they have to win at home, which is doable. But then you have to win back to back, go down to LAFC, and beat them on home soil, and it just seems like a really tall task. Is there anything that you want to say to any of the Whitecaps fans that are maybe feeling like, not again?
Yeah, I mean, this LAFC team's a juggernaut. I think they have to be the favorites in the West. Like, they're just so good on both sides of the ball. They've got experience, they've got talent, they've got everything you need. So it's going to be tough, and the Whitecaps showed it in the first game. Funnily enough, I think across the 90 minutes, the Whitecaps were the better team. Certainly for the first 60, they were the better team. But what's the nature of playing a team like LAFC, especially in the playoffs? Doesn't matter who's the better team, who has the better chances. Ultimately, LAFC, they don't need much to punish you, and they're good enough defensively that they can withstand some storms, and they did. And hey, credit to the Whitecaps. The storms they put were tough. Like, they hit a post inside 10 minutes, and you thought maybe that could have been a key moment that could have given the Whitecaps an advantage. Then with the down 1-0, they hit the post again off a free kick. You wonder, okay, maybe if those goes in, it's a different game. But it's the age-old story against a team like LAFC. If you don't put away your chances and you keep them around too long, like both LAFC goals, one was a penalty, the other one was a 0.05 XG chance. That's what they do to you. They'll find a way, even if it's you're giving them absolutely zilch to play. So it's going to be tough for the Whitecaps because it feels like they're going to need the perfect game. But I think what this group has also shown, such as they did against Portland, they're up for a challenge. They're, even when their backs are against the wall, they've seen LAFC enough. They've struggled at home lately, and I think they really want to put that behind them. I do feel like this goes to a third game for whatever reason. I think a sweep would feel cruel to the Whitecaps, and I think this group, they've got a little more fighting in them than to let it go to another sweep. So that'd be the one point of optimism. And hey, game 3, like they say in game 7s in hockey and in basketball, anything can happen. So if you're the Whitecaps, just try to avoid that sweep, and that would be a good start.
Yeah, the fans missed out on a home match against Portland, so they get their home match. I'm sure that they're going to come out and they're going to be loud and hopefully give the Whitecaps a good opportunity to push on. I'm curious to see what you thought of the starting 11, Alex. The last stream we did, we had a couple Whitecaps fans in the chat. I can't 100% remember what he said, but I think it was something along the lines of, I want to see Gauld, White, Armstrong. Maybe it was Fafa, maybe it was Atakubi. I can't really remember, but in the starting 11, we did see Armstrong start along with Gauld, White, obviously those two, and then Atakubi got the start. Did you like what you saw? Do you think Fafa will find his way into the starting 11 for the next game?
Yeah, I think so. Fafa Pico will have to start. We, when looking at these games, what we've seen from the Whitecaps, they need Fafa Pico's energy, and it was tough because, of course, you want to start an Ali Ahmed. But what we've come to realize, I think, maybe for the Whitecaps, and this is why it's something to keep an eye out for. Like, Ali Ahmed has been playing a lot on the wing, and part of that, I think, has been ever since he's been starting to play on the wing for Canada. They've kind of wanted to mimic that, but playing wing for the Whitecaps under Vanni Sartini is different than playing wing for Canada. So I think with that in mind, Fafa Pico should start on the wing. The bigger discussion is, do you still start Ali Ahmed in midfield? Because in this system, that's where he's best suited. And that's where probably the biggest question I have. Because I think for the most part, I can give you 10 confident starters. I think.
Yeah, do it. Let's go.
they're gonna keep Takoka in goal, Yohei Takoka. They're gonna stick with that back four because they've looked their best defensively in this 4-3-2-1 system. So that's Matthias Laborda, Branko Veselinovic, Tristan Blackman, Sam Adekubi from right to left. And then in midfield, Andres Kubas holds it down as the 6. His 2-8s. Stuart Armstrong's the one I'm confident in. The other one is, I think it's Ali Ahmed versus Pedro Vite for one of the number 8s personally. And then up front, I think it's Fafa Pico, Ryan Gall, Brian White. So 10 of those guys I'm confident. I just don't know if it's going to be Pedro Vite for a third straight game or if Ali Ahmed maybe gets a look at number 8, which is where I think he could really do some damage in the system.
It definitely shakes some things up, but yeah, I just thought it was funny that comment last week we touched on it for quite a bit, and like I can't remember who it was in the chat, but they're like, I want to see all 4 of them go, unleash it, like they need time to cook. We didn't quite see that, but it was close, and like kind of seems, Alex, you think that Fafa will find his way back in the starting 11. Is there anything else you want to touch on with the Whitecaps before we move on to our final big piece of the stream?
No, I think we'll see how it goes on Sunday. Some more Sunday night. Hey, it's funny all year in MLS. It's so much Saturday. It's nice to get some different dates too, right? You got some Friday night playoffs tonight. You got some Monday or some Sunday, Monday. It's nice to have the little different, a little something different. You get your Saturday afternoon CPL, but you also get your Sunday night MLS.
A couple big hitting matches this weekend that we'll be keeping an eye on. So to end off the stream, which I mean, it's only halfway through the stream, so we got about 30 or so minutes to touch on this. There's a tweet that was put out by Andre. I'm just going to pull it up here. Alex and I are going to go through it. This tweet was replicated from a U.S. men's national team.
Ben Wright.
Ben Wright.
US guy.
So I remember the U.S. one, and it was something along the lines, and I'm not sure if the legend here is the exact same, but it's saying, who's an elite player, high-level player, starting quality, rotation, depth, and then your kind of gray zoned area, which is your uncapped or not committed players. So Andre put in a good chunk of work here, so big shout out to him. We're going to go through it, Alex and I, and talk about different players that we agree with or what we would maybe change. And then from this, because we just got a nice refresher of who's at our disposal, we will take a look at the projected 23-player roster that Alex and I are going to build for the upcoming Nations League quarterfinal matches. So Alex, we will begin. And let us know, guys, in the comment section if you agree as well, if you agree with our takes, if you agree with Andre's, and anything that you want to add to this. We will begin with the keepers. So starting, I guess, with immediately right off the bat, Crepeau, Dane St. Clair are in the rotation bench category. I think that's a little harsh, both of them. I would very quickly put them as starting quality. I think MLS is a good level. I think both are great keepers within MLS and have both performed for the national team. I wouldn't say they're a high level player because there's plenty of big leagues around the world that they're not playing in, or an elite level player. So I feel like that one's pretty clear to me that they'd be starting quality. Alex, do you agree with both of that, or would you have them staying, or one of them staying as maybe as a rotation player?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'd agree with you, but I guess before we go any further, just some notes, I guess, like shout out to Andre and, check him out if you haven't. He does a lot of good stuff with Canucks Abroad, contributor there to Waking the Red. I know he's always on top of a lot of Canadian national team stuff. So his methodology, he admitted it there. He did a full thread. His was a bit more like recent, right? So in his case with the Crepeau, he was arguing more that Crepeau lost his starting spot lately for Portland, which he did. So that's the methodology. But I think for us, at least, Josh, I think you can't ignore body of work for me personally. I think if I'm looking at this, you have to consider the last 3 to 5 years in some cases. And I think for Crepeau, he's been a starter in MLS since 2019 and a high level starter in MLS. You can't just, he's not someone that 1 5-game blip of form drops him. Like maybe some other guys where they were a starter, but maybe not a good starter, I could see that. But for him, I think his body of work is just too good. The same goes for Dane St. Clair. He's been a starter now for 3 to 4 seasons. He's been a high level starter over that time, one of the best in MLS. So yeah, I think because of that, I would bump both two into starting quality. And the rest, I think no qualms with the rest of them because they're all on cap, so we don't even really have much else to argue there.
Yeah, and just quickly as well on Dane Sinclair in recent form. I mean, look at his performance against RSL as well, picking up the a couple big saves in that match, of course, going through on penalties. And Maxime Crepeau, I mean, I know he's in a little bit of rough form, but I'm not overly worried about it. And unfortunately for James Pantemis, another Canadian keeper, got lit up against the Whitecaps 5-0. So it's not like he came in and completely outperformed Crepeau. I don't really understand going into that game that they dropped Crepeau.
It made no sense.
I was shocked. I agree with you, Alex. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. I'm not worried about Crepeau's form. I think he's still a confident keeper. I think it was just a poor decision from our boy Phil there to drop him. So I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, I'd feel confident with both of them. They're starting quality keepers. And honestly, like, I'm curious to see where we're going to go here. Jonathan Sirois. It says uncapped, not committed yet, but we've seen him. I don't even know if he's eligible for another nation. So he's been called into camps, and he's a starter for CF Montreal.
I'd put him yellow, funnily.
Yeah.
I'd be confident with him yellow because, yes, he's been a starter. But, you know, with Montreal, there's been some ups, there's been some downs. I think, that case would be fair to have him as yellow.
I agree. And honestly, I'd probably keep Borjan as a yellow too. I don't know if you're following his performances.
He's been
Saudi.
cooking in Saudi. Yeah. I've been getting the FUTMOB notifications every week. It feels like rating 8.0, rating 7.8, rating 8.5. He's been getting a lot of work, let's just say, in Saudi, because his team they leak a lot of shots. But that's Borjan. He's always been a great shot stopper, right? It's always been a question of maybe the ball at his feet, maybe the sweeping is really where in the modern game, especially as Canada's evolved, where he got left back a little. But shot stopping, I mean, I think he was the top shot stopper in the 22 World Cup qualifiers in terms of expected goals. Like, shot stopping is his thing, and in Saudi, he's getting a lot of it.
Yeah, he's getting peppered. I mean, that's a very top-heavy league. So, unfortunately for Borjan, he's with a team that will more than likely be. Although they had a great start, they were fighting relegation last season. They pushed up, and he's been a big part of it. And yeah, every time I mean, it's on DAZN, so I've creeped a few games as well, and I've seen him just getting peppered, and he's playing really well. I don't think he'll ever get called back into this national team, but if there's for some reason there's a few injuries in terms of form, I don't know. I don't, he could stay as depth, doesn't really bother me. I could also put him into a rotation player if need be, but I believe he's 37 now.
What I'd say for Canada's goalkeeper depth, there's a lot of like question marks right now, in the sense that like there's a lot of wait and sees. Question marks is harsh. There's a lot of wait and sees. Like Tom McGill, a lot of potential, but he's in the fourth tier right now, right? Owen Goodman, a lot of potential because he's young, right? Like McGill, he's in 22, 23 now, almost 24. Goodman's still super young. He's in the fourth tier. You look at Luka Gavrin, he's a little older. He's like 23 because he was a late bloomer, but he has to win that starting spot for TFC. Swiderski, super young. Hassal backup. Like, there's a lot of question marks there. So it is worth noting that for whatever reason, if maybe there's some injuries and you need a third goalkeeper, there could be some world where a Borjan is needed on an emergency basis. Although, yeah, I think ultimately at that point we might see a Goodman call or a Swiderski call to give them experience before we even see that. So yeah, it feels like we might see it. This might be some of the like we've already seen the last of a Borjan, which I wonder if they're ever gonna do like some sort of celebration for like a him or like an Atiba Hutchinson, where it feels like some of those guys just kind of like Vittoria as well, just like unceremoniously, it was just like boom, it's over. And it would be cool to see some sort of moment for those three.
I agree. I mean, like I can almost promise you that we'll never see Borjan again, like with the Maple Leaf. I don't know in terms of some type of ceremony of what they could maybe do, but in terms of just straight up call up, I agree, Alex. Also, like even a James Pantemis, who's the next player on this list, I could see above Borjan. But we won't waste too much time on it. I'm going to try to rip through a few of these just to try to speed up.
Maybe let's do back four, and then we'll do midfielders, wingers, forwards. Let's do that. Let's do those categories.
But quickly, so I would probably I can leave Borjan in depth limited minutes. I would probably put Pantemis in depth limited minutes, and the rest of the keepers can all stay in uncapped, not committed. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd say so.
All right, we'll go over to the fullbacks quickly then. I don't know, this one's
I'd say, you know what I'll say for
Johnson,
Johnson?
high level player.
Johnson, I feel like, oof. I feel like he's a tweener between green and purple. I feel like the rest of that, all very fair. I think, yeah, I'd agree with all of it. Johnson, it does feel like with how good he's been for Celtic the last few years, how good he's been for Canada, you do feel like if Bombito is going to be a green off his body of work, it feels like Johnston could be green off his bigger body of work.
I agree. The body work is a good point. He's been excellent ever since moving to Celtic, and this season, he's upped it. There's a
phenomenal.
There's a tweet.
He's in the Golden Boot race.
I know. I think it was the Ismail Kone enthusiast on X put out. He's like a screenshot of him sitting fourth, and that just cracked
me.
He's
like tied for second, I think.
Yeah,
he's like one goal behind the leader.
So it wouldn't. And it also, Alex, if you told me tomorrow this upcoming January transfer window, Johnson's moving to the Premier League with like a low, I wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. I'll say he's a high level player. Just why not?
Champions League. I'd say I'll put green because he's done well in the Champions League. He's done well for Canada. He's done it for a while. Put him in green. Put him in green.
He's got a smile that just lights up a room. So we'll be a little biased, but I see Andre's point as well. But yeah, so that's also
I get it's the argument about the level, and it's fair. Like Celtic, outside of Celtic Rangers, there's always the argument is, are they getting the competition? But you can only play who's in front of you. Johnson is dominating the Scottish level, and he's doing quite well at the Champions League level. I think that makes up for any discrepancies in maybe the level personally.
I agree, 100%. So, only change we would make there, it goes high level. For the right-sided center backs, I mean, I have no problem keeping Bombito the way he's playing this season.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I just honestly, maybe all those center backs. Yeah, I think those are all pretty.
Maybe Defugerol as a rotation.
Yeah, maybe bump up but he's young, so I think the red actually it's very fair.
Yeah,
McNaughton, the injury kind of halted what he is. McGraw, I think that's fair. Waterman, yeah, I think no arguments there. Honestly, right center back, I think he got it nailed it on. All
right, on to the left center back. I would probably say, I mean, if I feel like Cornelius could be in the same argument as Johnston and Bombito if you're looking at those two examples, playing for Marseille, playing extremely well. I don't know. Like I'll get back to that one. Kamal Miller as a rotation, probably. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't have.
I think all of these. I think Miller, funnily enough, I think yes, this has been maybe not been a bit of a rougher season. A lot of it not his fault in terms of like Portland just sucks defensively, and a lot of it's the system, not the players. Like they could be using a lot of their players, including their goalkeepers, more to what they actually their strengths. So I'd have an argument for Miller, maybe being in that or
starting quality,
and I guess that in that case if Miller's in the purple, then you'd bump Cornelius to the green. I'd agree with this now. Like I think agree putting them in different tiers, but I could see an argument bumping Miller up. Which if you bump Miller up, I think you have to bump Cornelius up.
Yeah, and if Andre is watching, I mean it's very hard because I get everything that you did, and I totally respect all of the decisions, and it makes sense. It's hard where you draw the line. Like I mean, I think of playing with a club like Marseille, where you're starting
pretty regularly.
I don't know. I just
and the one game he doesn't start this weekend, they miss him. Like he's clearly got some.
Well, like that's a high level player to me. Like it's not like I don't know. It's a top. It's a big club. It's in a top 5 league.
You know what? Let's stick with it. We'll in this case we'll bump Miller up and we'll bump Cornelius. We'll bump because I think Miller as well. Like he hasn't lost his spot as so much because he's been bad. He's lost his spot because Cornelius has been that good. And I think you reward Cornelius for that, and you keep Miller up a category to show hey he's still like a pretty good level player.
I think
starting quality.
I think that's fair. All right, moving on to left back. Right off the bat, yeah, Davies, elite player. Starting quality for Sam, I agree with.
Yeah,
depth. Yeah, I don't have any issues with that. Do you?
No, I think left back looks good.
All right, on to right mid. Tajon Buchanan is starting quality. Again, it's so weird to think because he's playing for a team like Inter Milan. But I mean,
that one I'd say it makes more sense just
I
because he's more unproven at that level versus like I think a Cornelius has a more starts for a Marseille than a Buchanan has starts for like a Milan, right?
And that's where I was going, because I was almost contradicting my earlier point, saying like Buchanan is playing actually in a better league and a better club, but he's not playing, and he hasn't really played period since moving to that club. So yeah, I mean, I have no problem keeping him as starting quality. We've also questioned recently, Alex, with his recent performances for Canada and Ali Ahmed's performances, will he even be able to hold on to that starting spot for Canada, let alone the lack of minutes he's had for Inter? So yeah, I just thought it was funny that it just kind of went against my original point. But yeah, I would keep him as starting quality. Corbiano is an interesting one. I would probably move him down, to be honest.
See, I was going to say, I think if I were to make some changes here, Buchanan's good. I'd bump Corbianu down to red.
Yeah.
Keep Hoylett in yellow. Funnily enough, I'd move Hoylett to left mid, I think. And I'd move Ahmed to right. And I'd put Ahmed in blue. Bold, I know, but I think what he's shown...
Blue, like elite player, you mean? Or purple?
Or purple, sorry.
Purple, okay, yeah,
sorry, yeah, it looks like a blue to me. I know. Blue will remember. Okay, blue is elite. Yeah, I'll put Ali in purple, like starting quality, because what he's shown with Buchanan out, they haven't missed a beat. Like it's been very similar output. It's bold, but I'd put Ahmed on the right and put him in that same category as Buchanan in terms of the purple.
I agree. So just to summarize for anyone watching, and get your guys' opinions in as well, if you agree or disagree with anything let Alex and I say. We moved Ali over to the right-hand side. We have Buchanan and Ali both as starting quality. We have, I would say, I'm honestly fine with putting Afrifa up to rotation along with, I guess Hoylett would be moved, but Afrifa can be rotation, Corbiano will be depth, and then Marshall Ruddy is uncapped. Is that fair? Like Afrifa being in the rotation?
Afrifa, it could go either way, just because of, this was really his first season of getting regular minutes, regular opportunities. Give him another one, and I think he could definitely be comfortably yellow. Whereas now I think red, I had no issues with it at first glance, I'd say.
Yeah. That was my issue with Corbiano is, I mean,
he's not even been playing regularly in the second tier, right? So that's been the big question.
It's a shame. I liked the move for him at the time, mainly because I knew that they were going to get relegated, or at least it looked that way. And I was hoping that if he does, he's with a talented team in the second division where he can push for promotion, he will be a starting guy, and that's just not been the case. You said you're going to move Junior over to the left-hand side, so we have 5 players in the left right now, assuming Junior's over there. So I would put Liam Miller and Schaffelberg as starting quality. I would put Hoylett as the rotation, and I would keep the other two, I guess, the same. Luka Kolyosho could be a game changer, but we're not holding our breath. I mean, if he committed to Canada, he would be starting quality for sure. Unfortunately, we don't know what his future has in store. Alex, do you agree with that? Would you maybe
now that I've come to realize it, I feel like we need another category between yellow and purple, because I feel like there's been a bunch of guys who kind of fall between. Schaffelberg, Miller, I could see an argument for purple. You know what? I think you can make that. Yeah, Miller, Schaffelberg can be purple. Nelson can stay red. Hoylett, you keep yellow. I think that's fair.
All right. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. If you're going off of context, I mean, I think Liam Miller, unfortunately, he suffered a horrible injury, but he was starting for a solid club in the championship. He can be an impact player for Canada. He can start for Canada. Schaffelberg starts for Nashville, can have a bit of up and down season. He can start and make an impact for Canada, but also both players are also good coming off the bench. So yeah, I think
this is one where you'd want a category in between, right? Like something where it's like, not like, because starting quality, kind of, what does it mean? Does it mean you're comfortable with them starting, or is it like a week in, week out starter, right? Like, you can kind of ask, right? Like, because then in that case, rotation bench makes sense because they're rotation players, not starters. So I guess that's where I could also see the argument of keeping them in yellow. And I guess by extension, you could bump down an Ahmed back to yellow after we moved him to purple, for example, to use that.
Yeah. And I was about to say, it's difficult once you make a decision and you compare them to other players. Like if we have Buchanan, Ali Ahmed, Miller, and Schaffelberg all in the same category as starting quality, is that Is that
That's
true
a lot
across
of
the board?
starters, right? Is
Yeah,
it
so
true? Naturally, some
yeah,
guys are going to be rotated, but then Larea is a purple. So if Larea is a purple, then you're like, okay, maybe I feel if Larea is a purple, I'd keep an Ahmed as a purple, right? A
yeah.
Schaffelberg Miller. So it's all contextual.
It is. We're overthinking it, but we're having some fun with it. Like, and that's why I said Andre has good points, and I understand everything he did, and Alex and I
Hey,
are
he's
just
got
kind
us
of,
debating. So
yeah,
he did it. He did well. He
he
did
did
well
do
here.
well. He has this because it's hard. I mean, he's going off of something else that Ben created, and he's just trying to kind of form it into Canada. So, anyways, we'll move on to the midfield now. It looks like he separated them from 8s, 10s, and 6s, kind of, maybe not.
Yeah, I think it was more just right, left.
Not really. Yeah, just right, left. Okay.
So we can kind of jumble them all together.
All right, we'll start with the left then. Stephanie Stacchio is high-level player.
See, I thought that one was interesting because I feel like between Kone and Eustachio, I feel like you'd put Kone as the green and Eustachio. I don't mind having Eustachio as a green, but I would have been like, it would have made sense to see him as the purple. But based on how good he's been for Canada, I could see both of them green.
And I guess that's the other, I don't know. I didn't read through his threads. Maybe that's something I should have. I just looked at the picture and then read his opening.
I think a lot of consideration has also been for Canada because I think that's fight for Eustachio. I think Kone for sure. I feel like should be a green. 100%.
I agree. Whether it's Marseille or Canada, I agree that Kone should be a green as well. That's what caught me off guard. Eustachio scored yesterday, so I mean,
I can keep Eustachio as a green because he's dominant enough within CONCACAF and he scored yesterday for Porto. Porto's a big club. He plays regular champions in Europa League over the years. Green, I can live with green.
Okay, I agree. So we have our two high-level players playing for big clubs, and I think that, at least for me, goes into it. Starting quality, I mean, well, we already had Ahmed as starting quality. Chouanier, definitely.
Yeah, I can keep
Osorio, probably.
Osorio, you know what? I think the yellow shout's fair. Now I think it's more of a rotation piece, whereas Chouanier over the last few windows has kind of pushed himself into that purple category.
Do you think Nathan Saliba could be in that rotation?
Soon, very soon.
Same as Seeger then?
See, that's the one where I feel like Seeger's got he's got an extra season of body of work. Maybe that I could push him into that yellow with the Seeger, but I guess we haven't seen enough of him yet. So I guess it's fair for now. It feels like Saliba and Seeger, they're definitely in like red, yellow. They're orange, right? If you combine red and yellow, they're orange. So they're close.
And maybe we needed to ask more questions before we did this, Alex, but it says rotation/bench, and I can see a bunch of camps coming up where Seeger and Saliba are on the bench.
So in that case, yellow.
You know what I mean? Like that's like I don't know.
Agree with that.
Where I'm not seeing Piet on the bench anymore, so I feel like Piet
Laturi, Payton. That's true. It's hard to group them in with guys who haven't even been getting called up. So yeah, let's do it. Saliba, Seeger, orange to yellow.
Okay, orange to yellow for, and then I don't think I have any. I don't disagree with anything else on here. Two uncapped players. Jesse Costa moving to Brazil, which was an interesting one. We'll have to see how that pans out. Yeah, I think I'm fine with all the other ones as kind of depth, limited minutes. Then we move up to the strikers. Elite player for Jonathan David, I agree with.
Bang on.
High level player, and
Laren was in. I think Laren would have to be bumped down to purple. I think you can keep him purple, but I thought green was a bit of a surprise, especially when Kone got left out of that category.
Yeah, he's playing in a phenomenal league, and he's got a bit of form. But if we're talking body of work, I mean, he's far from consistent. When I picture a high level player, I kind of picture playing for a bit of a bigger club and also being able to kind of do it week in, week out. Now maybe that goes against Eustachio a little bit, but Eustachio has been that player in the past for Porto. He can be that player for Canada. Laren is I think he's a starting quality player. He can have his moments.
I think purple's fair. Like, I think that's fair. A category of a Buchanan, a Cornelius, a Johnston. Like it's not, it's not harsh.
And then for starting quality, anyone else can go with him, do you think? Or probably that rotation bench is the next one. I mean, in Jesse's mind, it would be Tanny, but
Tanny and Theo Bear, I think, are fair.
are
that
fair
they
to go and
that
start
they
in quality?
haven't, maybe gotten the starting looks yet, but that they're yellow. I think yellow's fair for yellow, like for
Yellow.
both of them. I think that was bang on.
Russell Rowe, do you want in that mix as well?
Yeah,
On the rotation bench.
see, I think just because we haven't seen much of him, I guess, but that's it. Jesse Marsh has given him a lot of calls, and then he's not called him at all, right? It's been either or. So, see, funnily enough, I think maybe if I'd push out Oluwasi, especially because he's left-footed. I'd put Oluwasi right under David, where it's like David, Oluwasi, Laren, Bear, like as the first four, with David being blue, Laren being purple, and then Bear and Oluwasi being both yellow, and then Russell Rowe you just put underneath them. Yellow, red, honestly, I could be fine with either.
Okay. I agree. He's definitely fifth on this list, though.
Yeah.
Ubo's a wild card. I'd leave him in red for now, just because I don't know what his future looks like.
And his form has, like, that's atrocious. The thing. Well, just because this is a good time, we've been asked. We didn't forget about you, Pierre, because I know Pierre was asking us about Ugbo and will he get called in. I think the big thing is he just hasn't been in form either, right? Like, it's something where, especially at the striker position, if you and he obviously lost his spot a bit because he didn't want to or wasn't able to go to Copa America, which was fair enough. But now, if he wants to get that spot back, he's got to get scoring goals, and he just hasn't been for Sheffield Wednesday. So I think with that in mind, that's why a red is fair until he gets that spot back.
Which is a bit of a shame because I loved what he did with Sheffield Wednesday last season. I loved that he got the move. Because there was a lot of debate about where he was going to go in the championship. Sheffield Wednesday wanted him. There were other offers. I just thought, why not go back to where you just found so much success and you got back to playing and being happy and being in form, and it just hasn't clicked for whatever reason. And plus the Copa America, not wanting to be a part of that. Anyways, for now, he will have to stay in the depth limited minutes. Cavallini will stay there as well. Brim had 2 goals and an assist yesterday, which is good to see. It was in cup competition, and I still think he's a far ways away from getting a call back up. Poku's probably ahead of all 3 of those other players in that category, and then the uncapped players are all fair because they're players that are uncapped, and honestly, most of them are dual nationals, except for maybe Vilsaint.
Well, Vilsaint's got Haiti, I think.
Haiti, yes, he does. Yes, he does. So, yeah.
And I think Passy as well. So, yeah, some interesting names on that list.
Yeah.
GMRC Michel is a big one, too. There in Portuguese top flight he is now with I forget the club that he's at.
It's something Guimarães.
Vitória or something like that.
Vitória Guimarães, if I can pronounce it.
Guimarães.
Yeah, well, I tried. All right. So, Alex, so big shout out to Andre. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for coming up with this. We agree with.
Big shout out.
I'd say 80% of what Andre said we agree
honestly
with.
And like there was nothing where we moved a guy more than one category, and I think in that case it's fair because then it comes down to preference of where we see a guy, where he sees a guy. I know reading through the comments everyone has their kind of opinion, so the fact that we're sitting here and the most we moved a guy was one category, I think says he did a very, very good job there.
Yeah, I'm just looking through the comments now. I
think Johnston, Kone, and Laren, I think, were the big 3 that I saw a lot of mentions about.
Yeah, Johnston up 1, Kone up 1, Laren down 1. But I mean, it's up for interpretation, and you need to define the parameters of this depth chart, which, yeah. But anyways, it was a lot of fun doing this. So, Alex, I guess very quickly from here to end off the stream, we'll rapid fire it out just looking at this. Jesse plays in a 4-4-2. So, basically, if you pick 2 players at every position, you'll have 22 plus your third keeper. So, let's just see in order if you actually put it pretty close to what we're looking at here, Alex. And wait, is there any injuries right off top of our heads that we need to be aware of? Can you remember? Liam
Miller's out for the season, so that's the big one. I think everyone else there.
Tajon,
he's returned. He's back on the bench for intern. Yeah. He's been fully training, so that's a good injury news.
But is it too? I meant sorry. Is it like? You think that's too early though for a call to Canada?
I do. Like, there's a 23-man squad. There's room for a guy like him. I guess the only question is winger, especially with Schaffelberg being out of season. You might want Yeah, I think that it's going to be, I guess we can see when we build it. That's the bigger question I have, is if you call in, you lose Miller, Schaffelberg, if he only has 60 in him because he's out of season, is Buchanan ready for 30 off the bench? We don't know, right? I guess that's the bigger question. But it's the same problem because Afrifa's out of season. So that's one of your next options.
Well,
right?
let's find out, Alex, because I'm looking at it now, and I think I can almost put this team together in one go. So let me see, and just interrupt me if you disagree. But it looks almost clear cut. 23 players. So Crepeau, St. Clair, Sirwa for the 3 keepers.
Yep.
Johnston, Larea for your right back.
Yep.
4 center backs: Bombito, Cornelius, Waterman, Miller.
Yep.
Left backs: Davies, Atakubi.
Yep.
Right mid, if you can rely on Ali Ahmed, so he can be your starter if you need to, and then you have Buchanan there, hopefully getting to full fitness by the time this camp comes around on your right mids.
Mm-hmm.
Left mid, I mean, I'm almost tempted to just taking Schaffelberg and then take 5 midfielders, because you can always maybe move like a Chouanier out wide, and if I did that, I would have Schaffelberg as my left. Then you'd have Eustachio, Kone, Osorio, Chouanier, Seeger, Saliba. Is that 5?
One of Seeger, Saliba, I think, would have to get cut in this scenario.
1, 2, 3. Oh yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. So probably Saliba would get cut for me.
I guess the out of season argument.
That's what I.
You know what? I like that. I didn't think of the Chouanier playing wing. I guess Ahmed could play both sides. Even Osorio can play there in a pinch. David can play there in a pinch. Like, I guess you have Davies who can play there in a pinch. Davies. You have Larea. I think you have enough depth that you can get away with only taking one. I think that's a good call. So
Schaffelberg would be the left, and we can just slot Chouanier in there as well as kind of the backup, and then your midfielder would be Eustachio, Kone, Osorio,
Seeger
for your 4.
Yeah, on the right.
Yeah. And then your 4 strikers, I think David, Laren, Bear, and Tanny.
Yep.
Cool. And that's the team.
It's about as easy of a squad as we've made in recent months. They're
all kind of there. That was just the big question without Liam Miller. But I mean, Tejan's coming back at the right time. You have your versatile players that can help you out. I like it. I don't really think that there's much argument. If you have one player, Alex, just to end off the stream, that you would, I guess, the one player that would come in that is kind of a wild card. Although I wouldn't count like Sleeve as a wild card, but I could definitely see him getting called in. I'm looking on this list. I don't know who else could sneak its way in.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
I think a wild card. Oof, maybe, especially now that it's a competitive window again. Yeah. I'd have to say one of the forwards, maybe, right? Like, you always do wonder if maybe you get a Kulenovic to come in or something, or a Koleosho. Like, Koleosho would be the ideal one because you lose a winger in Miller and Koleosho steps up. But we'll see, because there's been obviously a lot of rumors of Koleosho because the US, Italy, Canada, all after him, and it feels like he's as elusive as ever.
It's hard to know. I don't want to get my hopes up, or any of the Canadian fans. I'm not convinced that we're right up there in the running, just because I'm pretty convinced that Italy is in the driver's seat. It just, there's rumors that go around out there. I've tried to ask around, and I haven't heard anything that should give us any huge confidence at the moment, but it does still seem like it's a bit up in the air. If you're asking my opinion, because I've been asked about it quite a bit, I would just say Italy's in the driver's seat, and if something changes, I wouldn't rule Canada out. I don't think that the States are above us. I would honestly lean a little bit towards like a 1-2% that we're a little above them, but I think Italy's in the driver's seat. And the way that national team is, they're a huge nation, and Koleosho could legitimately make a difference to that team. They're not
100%.
Yeah, they're not star-studded. Their wingers have injury problems. Koleosho's playing at a good level. We've seen it before, and that's where my thought is on that. I like the Kulenovic one, though. If we're going for like a dual nat,
maybe something like that happens. It's tough because who do you leave out, right? Do you leave out a Bear?
I can see Bear being the one left out.
Yeah, you could, or is it a Tanny? And you just, especially maybe if Minnesota goes to the next round, you keep him with his club to.
That's a good point.
Keep training, right? There's arguments for both, because either way, you're not. Feels like between Tanny and Bear, one of them is going to get minutes and one of them is going to ride Pine. So you figure out who that's going to be, and you swap out the one who's going to ride Pine, and you bring Kulenovic in just for one camp to get a look at him. Could also make sense.
Yeah, it's tough. I agree with what you said. The Minnesota being in playoffs could be a reason for Taney to stay, but in terms of the depth chart, at least the way I look at it, I think Taney's 3. I think comfortably 3 right after Lair and David, which means Bear would be the odd man out. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, that is all the time we have on today's stream. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. Big game coming up tomorrow. Hope you guys will follow along here on One Soccer. The Whitecaps play on Sunday, the final on the 9th. It will be a lot of fun. Big shout out to our sponsors for today's stream, tonybet. We definitely appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. Drop a like on your way out. Drop a sub. I'll see you soon. Cheers, friends.